What's up, everybody? Jake, your resident content cowboy here, and oh boy, do we have some big changes here for Warcraft Rumble. You know, one of the best things about a game like this is that these games, these live service games, they live and die. They live and die based on how well they update. And we got some great updates here for Warcraft Rumble. I'm going to talk about some quick ones first, then I'm going to get you into the big one that is really changing the entire game. First off, it is Blackrock week here in our dungeons. Dress accordingly, as always. That means that next week we have our Undead week coming up. So right now, we've got two leaders, General Drakasath and Ren Blackhand, that you can send in there. I'll be making a guide on that dungeon. Seems like a lot of units that attack physical, so we could do some armored units and work really well there. There's really only one level that I think is super tricky inside that. The big change, of course, that is changing everything is the PvP change. So one of my favorite things about Warcraft Rumble right now is that they changed one thing inside of PvP, and it has changed the entire meta. So right now we have a modifier change coming up in 12 days, I believe it says. Yes, 12 days we have a modifier change coming up. But what they did just change are the towers. So the towers used to be those individual target towers. They were those arrow towers that would hit enemies, things that you essentially always almost see in the campaign. There are a few levels without them. Now they are dragon towers. They deal damage in an area, in a cone, and they do elemental damage, and it looks like they're dealing more damage the closer you are to the tower, which shifts the meta in so many ways. Let's take a look at a strategy that was really popular on the last setup for PvP that won't work well here. This is Tyrion with the footmen right here. These footmen are really tanky, but they are armored, and they have to get right next to something to attack, and they also attack as 4 units as once. This little death ball that was created between Tyrion and these units is now essentially completely wrecked at these towers. A lot of armored units are getting crushed by these towers right now, and again, that means huge changes for the meta. There are also some units that you might not expect to get even better, something like the Huntress. The Huntress is already ranged, so it's staying away from towers like this, and it is resistant, so it takes less damage from elemental sources. So I'm going to go through some units with you right now that work really well for these towers, and some that are really hurt by these towers. I figured for this part of the video it'd make the most sense to show you this just in a little bit of a tier list form. It is Monday after all. On Mondays we do tier lists, and on Wednesdays we wear pink. Let's take a look at our tiers really quick. We have our looking better. These are units that are doing better with this change. Looking worse, self-explanatory. We have the B tier. Still got the B tier. We have our let's talk tier and our need to more time to test tier. So I'm going to give you kind of a brief look at what I think has changed in PvP given what has happened with some of this. So units like Blood Mage Thalanos, leaders, excuse me, like Blood Mage Thalanos, Jaina, Sylvanas, and even Karin for a different reason, I feel like all gain value from a change like this. Being ranged is huge for all of these units, and then a lot of the melee leaders are in a worse spot because they have to get right next to a tower, and that means they're going to be soaking up a ton of damage. So nice changes for them. And then Karin, I think the nicest thing about Karin is it gives all of its units 20% extra HP, just giving more and more opportunities to soak up some of this tower damage. If we look at leaders like Murkai, I think is hurting from this, obviously. You know, he doesn't have insanely good range, and the units he spawns are really squishy. He's my favorite leader in the game, but I do think he's looking a little worse. We've got Baron. I don't think Baron is destroyed by this, but I actually do think this helps against some of the Baron pushes that you see, like the full skeleton pushes. You can wipe those out much easier. Hogger, another leader that has to get right next to a tower and plays low-cost cycle units. Because of that, I think they can get wiped out by towers pretty quickly. I run into a few Maevs, and I feel like this unit actually gets hurt quite a bit by this change, because a lot of their play is walking up to a tower and soaking the damage from it from multiple angles. But what I've noticed is happening is it's easier for them to get caught in the cones of damage, and then they just get burst down faster. Gromosh, I don't think is doing terrible from this, but also is melee. Tyrion had a few crazy good healing decks that I think are changed quite a bit. And then Sneed is, a siege melee hero, and a lot of their play focuses around on, getting siege units near towers. That being said, I think there could be some cool things that we see with, catapults and things like that inside the game, rather than maybe some of the units that you've come to know from Sneed. Rend, I feel like probably isn't changed too much from this. I think Rend's probably doing about the same, even though he does drop down and become melee. He has a lot of flying options. His Gargoyle deck probably isn't doing as well. And then Charlga, I really don't know. I don't play enough Charlga. I have not really tried it. It fights at extreme range, so it might actually benefit quite a bit from these changes here. As we look to some of these units, let's talk about it. You can see that a lot of resistant units are up here in the looking better. So Huntress looking a little bit better right here. Core Hounds, I still don't know if they're super viable because they are 6 costs, but they are 2 big resistant tanks, which is nice. Darkspear Troll, I feel like really rocks in this patch. So it attacks at a huge range, and the further away you are, the less damage you are taking from those towers, and Darkspear Troll just feels like it's doing so well. Oh, and I missed Dracosath. I accidentally put him a little further down here. Doing better. He's a resistant hero. It is Blackrock week, so I think it's a nice little boost for him in this week. We, of course, have the Meat Wagon, long range, siege. That's great. Our Pumpkin Farmer, I think, is actually the Plague Farmer. I think is actually doing better in this patch. He attacks at pretty good range, and he deals damage over time. Quillbore, a resistant tank, doing even better. As we take a look at some of our units that are doing worse, you'll see a lot of, I could kind of group them together here a little bit better, but a lot of squad units right here are just doing a lot worse. So Raptors, Murlocs, Chickens, Skeleton Army, Skeletons, Spiderlings, by the way, not only are they squad unit, they take double damage from elemental targets, which are the towers. Vultures, I think all these are in trouble. I think Whelp Eggs still do really, really well because you don't really use them to fight around towers as much, but they definitely are hurt a little bit from this change. You could set up some strategies where they all flame burst because of the explosion, and you could get some value there. I don't think they're hurting too much. Warsong Raider, oh, Harpies as well. I feel like Harpies are actually hurt quite a bit from this change. They just get rinsed by these towers. Warsong Raider, I think, is hurting. Molten Giant already wasn't doing amazing. We have Gargoyle now. It's armored and it has to get right next to a tower, and it gets burnt fast. Footmen as well. Footmen are just in trouble with this patch. Earth Elemental, a unit that I grew to love last patch, now is in a lot more trouble against some of these towers. Things like Flame Waker, I don't think are doing amazing. Blackrock Pyromancer and Flame Waker, I don't think these are bad. These could be in our B tier of like relatively unchanged, but they are doing elemental damage. And I think anything that does elemental damage is going to have to run into the fact that people are going to be running a lot of resistant units inside of this meta. As we take a look at our B tier right here, Rend, I think, again, is fine. A-Bomb doesn't change too much. Neither does our Miner or Defias Bandits. We've kind of got the Fire Hammer. I don't think it changes a lot. You could kind of put it there with Pyromancer if you wanted to. Ghoul, Null Brute. I think Ghoul is actually really good. I think people are sleeping on Ghoul. I think it's a really good unit. Safe Pilot, even though it's elemental damage, I think its value is not changing a ton. We've got Harvest Golem. I actually think there could be something here. It's a good tank. It's neither armored or resistant. It costs only 3 and it has a ton of HP. Ogre Mage, not a big change. Polymorph, not a huge change. Prowler, these are melee but seem to be doing okay. Stonehoof, okay. Grunts, I don't play with a ton, but again, they're neither armored nor resistant, so they're still kind of in the same boat. Shaman can heal at range, doing fine. Worgen, again, it's unbound. It's really more of an assassin unit. I think it's doing fine. Some of our spells here, Bat Rider in this category as well. What we're looking at right here is that all of these spells deal elemental damage, and they're not terrible or anything like that. It's just that you're gonna run into more resistant units, so these do lose some value right here. And then Bat Rider's kind of like that. It's not at great range, and it deals elemental damage. I don't know, it probably is looking a little worse. I could throw it right there, but the spells are interesting. And then there's some units I need more time to test. I feel like Sappers are probably hurt, but a lot of people are running that kind of Sappers stealth combination that you're seeing, so I don't think that's terrible. Execute, I don't think changes much. Holy Nova, I don't think changes much. Neither does Living Bomb. It's also elemental. I just don't, I don't really use these a lot, so I can't tell you a lot about them. Mountaineer, I think actually presents some interesting concepts, but it's so expensive. It's a 6-drop, and I think it's just really, really specific. Drake as well. I don't use a ton of Drake. I'm sure you'll see a lot more of it with Rend, but you're gonna be seeing units that attack from a lot of range. So you're gonna be seeing a lot of Darkspear Trolls, a lot of Huntresses, and I think they counter this pretty well. And then I don't think Banshee is gonna get changed much, but I have not played a ton with Banshee since the changes. So that's kind of a brief overview of what I think is happening in the meta given the changes to these towers. It's going to be really cool to see. I love seeing changes like this so quickly inside this game. Let me know what you think I got right. Let me know what you think I got wrong. Let me know what you think is an amazing counter to what we're seeing in the meta right now in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I love you. I'll see you all next time. We did it.